Avengers Endgame, Happy Hogan himself, Jon Favreau.
So, welcome. I don't know how many of you attended the Infinity War press conference, but it was hosted by the Grandmaster himself, Mr. Jeff Goldblum. I'm here this time, and this may all look very familiar to you. I'm happy, no pun intended, that's what it says in the card, no pun intended, to be here with you today to do the honors. I've been involved with the MCU, as most of you know, since the Marvel Universe was a screaming toddler, and now it has grown into a big, vast family, and I'm very proud. It's a bit surreal, I'm going to be honest with you. It was a wonderful choice, I think, on my part, to give myself a small cameo in the first one, because I've been working ever since, and thanks to the Russo brothers and all the directors since then to include me in this. Without further ado, now I know you're all excited to be here as we count down to Avengers Endgame, the grand conclusion of 22 films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So without further ado, please welcome the cast and filmmakers of Marvel Studios' Avengers Endgame. Clearly things look a little different in a post-Infinity War Marvel Cinematic Universe. Post-snap, there's a few empty seats. So why don't, I'd like to welcome back the people that you see here on stage. Downey Jr, Anthony Russo, Joe Russo, Scarlett Johansson, Kevin Feige, Robert Downey Jr, Chris Hemsworth, Don Cheadle, and Mark Ruffalo. Here they are. And you got Mark and Don. You feel so far away in the back row. Why don't you help fill in some of the seats up front? Come on, come on. Come on, move up front.
All right. You have a Kleenex? I have a little nosebleed.
Yeah. And we are fortunate enough to have a few of the other people that survived the snap joining us today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Birthday Boy, Paul Rudd, Karen Gillan, Brie Larson, Chris Evans, and Jeremy Renner. What a handsome group. Beautiful, lovely set of thespians and behind the camera talent. Let's start with where it all started, Mr. Robert Downey Jr. I have a question here on the card. When you first suited up as Iron Man, could you envision Tony Stark's arc and where you wanted to see the character go? And how did you approach building such a memorable character?
Did you all bring your bag lunch? Hi, John.
Hi, Robert.
I've been thinking about this recently. There's always two tracks, at least in my mind. One is the sky is falling, and the other is the sky's the limit. And as we had those many discussions in the high desert and shooting the film, I'm reminded now that I was talking a lot of smack, saying, "Wait till you see where this goes." But in the moment, I was just hoping day to day we were making good scenes and getting good stuff in the can, and usual gobbledygook. I just wanted to not drop the ball.
And would you like the fans to call this film Avengers Endgame? Would you prefer them to call it Infinity War 2, Avengers 4, or perhaps Iron Man 22? Well, was
There's
it
time for that yet.
Was it a surprise early on that Iron Man amassed an army of devoted fans? And what do those fans mean to you today, Robert?
Again, I've been just feeling like I'm kind of an oddball Manny, who I've been offered the opportunity to usher in this larger, as you were saying, family and stuff, and I look around and we are close and growing closer by the moment. So it's just great to, hi Bree. Bless you. What a fun springtime you're having. It's just nice. To me, it's just the coolest relay race in the history of entertainment, for my money. So.
And relay race is a good way to put it, because it has been a collection not just of different actors portraying superheroes, but also filmmakers carrying the torch from one film to the other, and all of it under the guidance of Mr. Kevin Feige sitting next to you. Now, 11 years ago, 11 years ago, you could not have predicted the 22 films you produced in the Marvel Cinematic Universe would be so wildly successful and popular. When did you actually begin to realize that you had something big on your hands?
Well, big is relative, but it was, we hired a great director to do the first film in the MCU. And then we hired a great actor. And we had fun making that first movie, as you all recall. And it was sort of the success of it, the bar for success was pretty low. It felt high at the time, but it was not that high. It was comparative to other Marvel films that had been out in that general area, which is what we wanted to compete with. But as we were making the movie, and as we were looking at dailies, and as we were looking at effects tests coming in, we realized that this was really going to be special, and even perhaps more special than we thought. And then that opening weekend, and the response to the trailer, frankly, with you coming out at Hall H at Comic-Con for the first time, showing that trailer, there started to be a much bigger sort of wind behind our back, combined with Mr. Sam Jackson's cameo that we secretly did on that Saturday at Playa, and then leaked the next day. And the response to that. And then people picked up that meant this interconnected universe, which everybody knew from the books, but had never been done in the movies.
Right, and what makes Avengers Endgame so special that it's the most highly anticipated superhero film ever? It says it here, I didn't.
A question?
Yes. What makes it so special? What makes this movie in particular?
Well, what's special is all the actors on this stage, all the actors who are not on this stage. And as you said earlier, the family that has come together this decade plus, and the fact that Robert said it so well in the trailer, part of the journey is the end. And about 4 or 5 years ago, we all started talking about doing something at every turn, including the first Iron Man film. We talked about, how can we do something that's never been done before? What if the superhero outs his identity at the very last shot of the movie? We can't do that. No one does that. Can't do that. What would we do next time? I don't know. Let's do it. 4 or 5 years ago, we talked about what haven't we seen in films based on comic characters we haven't seen in Endgame, a definitive conclusion to an overall saga. So that is why it's called Endgame, and why I think it's very, very, very special.
Anthony Russo. And by the way, both of you Russo brothers, thank you as somebody who's been involved in this journey for looking after it and allowing it to grow and finding greater potential and building it into what it is today. I know as filmmakers, we're sort of a subset of the community, along with Joss and everybody else who's been involved. Everybody else has been involved. But it's really been a collective where everybody's been asking, collaborating, and we all feel that this is a bit of a relay race where we look after it, and to have both of you stick the landing like this and bring this whole saga to the conclusion, all of us feel really, really grateful that you created, you reinforced this and then turning it into something that's really a phenomenon. And Anthony specifically, how does the surprise ending of Avengers Infinity War affect the tone of Endgame in the aftermath of Thanos' destruction?
Well, first of all, thank you for saying that, John. And secondly, Joe and I, we speak constantly about the debt we owe to you for starting this whole thing. And we both remember that moment that we sat in the theater and watched that first Iron Man for the first time. And I remember that feeling of like, I wish we were part of this, and we had no idea that years later we actually would be. So, I mean, that was an epic moment in a movie theater, so thank you for that. So the ending of Infinity War is, look, Joe and I have mentioned this before, like one of our favorite storytelling adages is write yourself into a corner. And what we take that to mean is like put yourself in a place on a narrative level where you have no idea how you could possibly move forward from here. And that's a very exciting place to be. And it forces you to come up with some really creative ways forward. And we've tried to do that with the endings of every single Marvel movie we've done, and perhaps never more so, of course, than Infinity War. We are very committed to the ending of that movie. We think that stories lose their meaning and relevancy and resonance unless there are real stakes. And for us, moving into this new movie, into Endgame, the story is very much about how do these characters, how do these heroes deal with loss? resounding loss, true loss, devastating loss. That's what they've experienced in Infinity War, and that was a unique experience for all of them. And how does a person move forward from that moment? How does a hero move forward from that moment? And you know, the way our wrote into this story is how is everybody on an individual level dealing with that experience, and then how do they collectively deal with it?
And Joe, what do you want audiences to experience when they watch Avengers Endgame?
I'm sorry, John, we can't talk about that. You know, look, this is, I think, a really unique experiment in movies, this grand mosaic. It's, I don't know, depending on how you count it up, 11 franchises that have been interwoven into one big narrative. And I think, you know, a lot of people have invested a lot of heart and soul into the characters. And, you know, when we take these movies around the world, it's really, it's heartwarming to see people come up to you and say, hey, you know, I started watching this with my classmates when I was 10 years old. Now we're all 21 and we're all going to go see this together. Or my parents have taken me to every movie, or my grandfather's taken me to every film. And, you know, it's a real sense of community and sharing in these stories and believing in them. And I think, you know, with Endgame, we get the opportunity to you know, finish off one of the grandest experiments in movie history. And bring it to, as Kevin said, an epic conclusion. So what we're hoping for is that people feel satisfied with the conclusion.
Jeremy Renner, Hawkeye is back. How do you feel to rejoin the Avengers and take up your bow again?
Microphone. Mike.
I need this? No, yeah, I feel good.